Without further ado, as they say, the proverbial virtual floor is yours. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Russell, so much. My apologies. I got to go back and roll the tape to hear that spellbounding. I appreciate you guys so much. You're so efficient. You're ahead of time. So here we are. And many thanks to Allie and also Alan, who made me know, get in there. They're ready for you. So here I am. So glad to be with you all virtually. I wish we could be all in the same space physically. There's something about having the energy of a physical presence. But thank goodness we live in a time where we can gather virtually. 50 years ago, this was not even a thing, but now it is a thing, and we are utilizing the tools at our disposal. To the Massachusetts Peace Action, to the leaders, to the members, to the family, the frenemies, and the friends who are gathered here with us this morning. I thank you so much for being here and for using your time, your talent, and your treasure to be on the right side of justice. We often think about justice as if it is this pretty picture. We're fighting for justice. And while the notion of achieving justice itself is very beautiful, getting there is very messy. We know throughout human history, but especially in America, what we know as the United States of America, the path to justice has not been beautiful. It has been bloody. It has been painful. People have hurt. It has caused hurt. Even people have died fighting for this thing called justice, from the founding of this country to one of the most horrific things that this country has ever done, even before its founding, and that is the enslavement of Africans and then their descendants. So fighting for justice is not a beautiful thing, but getting to justice is. And so I want all of you to know that it is not a destination. It is in fact a journey. And I think, Mass, you understand that very clearly, which is why you continue to fight. I was looking at some of the things that you have posted on your website about how the state of Massachusetts is seen as a very progressive place, but in reality, you have leadership that doesn't listen, and the forces that have the people's power is not necessarily moving in the direction of the people. And that is not only true for your state, it is true for the United States of America. As we look at what is happening in the Middle East by way of most recent example, we know that the majority of Americans, no matter how they fall on the political spectrum, want peace. They want peace. They're crying out for peace. But yet, those who are in power, and it is Democrats who are in power in this administration, are not going in that direction. We know that the majority of the American people want universal health care, they want paid family medical leave. I mean, insert our great platform, and you will see that the majority of the American people are right where we are. So I want you all to know that it is not us who are the radicals. It is the people and the leaders and the forces that are not in line with what the majority of the people of this country want, no matter if they're Democrat, Republican, progressive, neoliberal, a little country, a little rock and roll, a little R&B. It doesn't matter how people fall. When you talk to them about the issues that animate their lives, they are in line with what our movement is pushing for. So I was thinking, what can I say to the Massachusetts Peace Action Group? I want to both edify and lift you, but also to let you know that our work is not complete. Just like our foremothers and forefathers who came before us, those who had a mind to fight for justice in their time, their work was never done. They just passed the baton to us. And so our work is not done as we ready ourselves to advance justice in all of its forms, whether it is social, political, economic, or environmental. It is our job to push for justice. I think about my track days, and Alan has heard me tell this story. I used to run track in high school, and I was pretty fast. I was the first leg of the 440 relay. And I'm using this as my example because I want you to visualize people running track. Let's think about the Olympics. I'm sure most of us have watched the Olympics. And if you watch track and field, you know that there is a race called the 440 relay. I was the first leg of the 440 relay in high school. And to be the first leg, it means that you are fast. The goal of the first leg of the relay is to set the pace, is to get the lead for the team. The key word is the team. We are the team. The legs are playing a role. So the first leg gets the lead for their team. They pass the baton to the second leg of the race, and their job is to keep the lead and advance that lead. Keep the lead and advance that lead. As the second leg of the relay race passes the baton to the third leg, the mission is still the same. It is to keep the lead, but then advance the lead. And then you pass the baton to the anchor, and the timing has to be just right, because if it's too fast or too slow, the baton could drop, and then you have to pick it up and start all over again in terms of regaining the lead. So timing is everything too. And then as that baton is passed from the third leg of that 440 relay to the anchor's job is to not only keep the lead, not only to advance the lead, but to bring it on home. That is the work for progressives like us, not just in this country, but all over the world. Whatever leg of the race you deem yourself as running, you have a role to play. The only thing, though, in the life of in the 440 relay of life, we never stop trying to keep the lead, trying to advance the lead, and trying to bring it on home. So whether we look at that in terms of civil rights or women's rights or gay rights or environmental rights, insert your right. The goal is to advance the lead in the areas of politics, of social, of society, and all of its forms, and to advance it. See, it's not enough to keep it. We got to advance it. And just as there are spirits like ours who are very animated about advancing, keeping the lead and advancing the lead, there's an opposite force. Remember what we learned in science. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And I think that those of us who are on the side of justice, we often think that the other side is just going to sit back and say, oh yeah, they're right. We should have universal health care in this country so that every single American does not have to worry about going broke to try to stay healthy. That's a good thing. We often think that now that we know what the fossil fuel industry is doing and has done, we should be on the right side of justice and try to advance ourselves as a nation and as a world to wean ourselves off of fossil fuels and make renewable energy the thing to do, because we already know the impact that oil and gas has on the environment. And although we just can't stop the car like that, we should be working towards a time in human history that we do not rely on fossil fuels. We're thinking to ourselves, why don't people get that? We're thinking to ourselves in the legal system, now that we know that the system itself is inherently racist and anti-Black and does not have a class consciousness within it. My God, we should be pushing laws to correct the wrongs in this country and to advance the good. We're thinking as progressives, that makes a whole lot of sense. We're also thinking that why wouldn't we be on the side of the labor movement, that it is not good that there's a 399-to-1 ratio between CEO pay and worker pay, that kind of imbalance is not good. We're thinking to ourselves, who could be against that? But I want you to know, sisters and brothers, family and friends, and even frenemies, that just as we are pushing for justice, as the generations before us and some generations that are still walking the face of this earth, as they push for justice, there was an opposite and equal force pushing against them. And sometimes those forces look like the people in this room. Sometimes those forces have D's behind their names. But I want to tell you something. This is not about the D in Democrat. This is about the D in deeds. DEEDS. See, I care more about your deeds than your political affiliation. And Massachusetts, you know all too well that you got a whole lot of D's, but their deeds don't mean a damn thing because they are not fighting for and standing up for what is just, what is right, and what is good. Now, in this moment, I'm not going to leave the Republicans out because they could be and they should be doing a whole lot better than what they are doing now. And in mass in states all across this country, and even in the Congress, we see so many of them be pro-birth, but not pro-life. But then what is the excuse for the Democrats? That's what I'm trying to understand. Working class people all over this country, they need one of these two parties since we're stuck with two for now. I hope there comes a day when we have that there's an omnipartisanship going, that there are many political parties in the United States of America, because it is absolutely asinine on its face to have two political parties to deal with over 300 million people in this country. But here we are. I want to put that in the parking lot. The working class people of this country of all backgrounds need one of these two parties to stand up unequivocally and unabashed for the quality of life for the people in this country and not be ashamed to do it. They need leaders who understand that what happens over there, and over there is the Middle East. Over there is the continent of Africa. Over there is the Ukraine. Over there is Haiti. What happens over there happens over here, and we cannot divorce ourselves from the pain and the pressure that people are feeling all over this world, mainly at the hands of an American empire, to quote the great Dr. Cornel West, and other colonial forces whose will we can see being done throughout the land in ways that disadvantages poor people all over the world. What happens over there happens over here. And so, brothers and sisters, family and friends and frenemies, for you in this movement, our job is to advance the lead, to keep the lead, to advance the lead, and to bring it on home. And that's why I am so just absolutely feeling blessed to be in your presence. So Russell, I'm all off my notes. I didn't even, I had written a speech. Allie gave me plenty of prep time, and as I often do, I just kind of go where the spirit leads me. So I jotted down a few notes as I wrap this thing up because I know we're going to have some Q&A, but I'm feeling this today, and I cannot wait to be on the road with you all. I'm coming to Massachusetts. I'm coming to many states next year, and my goal, I'm getting back on the road, baby. We're going to lift up this movement. We're going to recapture the feeling that we felt when Senator Bernard Sanders challenged the status quo in 2016. We're going to stir that back up. Russell, we're going to do that thing all over again because our work is not done. And as a movement, they continue to push back on us, but I want to remind us that while personalities are a beautiful thing, we cannot put all of our hopes and all of the weight, quite frankly, on one personality. This movement, the resurgence of the progressive movement in the 21st century, we definitely owe a lot of thanks to Senator Bernard Sanders, but it is us too. It is not me, right? Remember that? It is not me, it is us. And so it is our job, no matter what generation we are from. If we are walking the face of this earth, we have a moral obligation to push for the lead, to keep the lead, and to advance the lead of justice. It's on us. And so leaders like myself and like the senator and so many others and people with fancy titles, I often say that titles are good. I got a whole bunch of titles, and because of that, I do get my phone calls returned. Titles are good, but purpose is better. What the hell do we care about people with fancy titles when they deny the American people what they need to not just survive, but to thrive? What the hell good is a title when people are not willing to make the requisite demand that power bends to the will and to the needs of the people in this nation and in this world? I don't care about those titles if people are not going to stand up for what is just, for what is right, and for what is good. I'm a hell-raising humanitarian. So let me do this. I just three things I wanted to say to you, besides all the things that I said that were not in my notes. I am a preacher's kid. My mother was a preacher, was a preacher. She is no longer on this plane of existence. Miss her every single day. I am a preacher's kid. And my mother made my siblings and I go to church 8 days a week. I'm sure I got some amens in the house on that. 8 days a week, my mother did. And there is a scripture in the Christian Bible. I'm shouting out to people of all faith and then people of no faith at all. But this is it. This is my ground. And there's a scripture that talks about being steadfast. Be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the works of the Lord, for as much as you know that your labor is not in vain. Massachusetts Peace Action, my message today is a spiritual one, that I want you to be steadfast and unmovable, abounding in goodness and in justice, for as much as you know that your labor is not in vain. Just as the people who laid a path for us to be where we are today and to have that spirit that we're going to fight and push for justice, we know they knew that their labor was not in vain. I want you to know that your labor is not in vain, even though you are bucking up against a system that thinks that it will not bend, but eventually it will, because we're not going to give up. We're not going to give out. We're not going anywhere. So be steadfast is my first message to you today. The second one is coming from Brother James Baldwin, one of the greatest novelists of the 20th century. And this is on me all the time. And he said this. He said, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And we have to have the willingness to face the challenges that are before us today. That there are millions of people in this country who have no health care. There are millions of people in this country who don't have a roof over their head. There are millions of children in this country who go to bed hungry at night. There are millions who have fallen victim to a legal system that is unjust and that is anti-Black. There are millions of people in this country who live in communities where environmental justice does not exist. There are millions of people in this country among the working class who are standing up, fighting for better wages and work conditions. There are millions of people in this country who are suffering disproportionately in hoods all over this country, whether those hoods are urban, rural, or suburban. And it is our job, progressives, to stand up against the forces that will dare deny our sisters and brothers the opportunity to not just survive every damn day. Who wants to live and survive every day of their lives? We want to get people to thrive. We want to follow Maslow's hierarchy of needs and create pathways of opportunity for the greatest majority of people in this country and then in the world to get to self-actualization. Why should that only be for people who are the ultra wealthy? It should be a path that everybody can take, that everybody can venture on. And that is why the essence of our spirit and our fight is necessary. Be steadfast and unmovable. And then to know what Brother James Baldwin said, that not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. Are we ready to face what lies before us on this day and in the days to come? And then lastly, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and the uses of power. And I got to thank Brother Norm Solomon for drilling this particular quote in my head, because progressives, we often forget that we got to get the power. It's not enough to be right on the issues without having the power. We need power, and we should not be afraid of gaining the power. How do we gain the power? We gain the power from an activist perspective. Not everybody got to have a special elected title, but we do need people with those special titles who understand their purpose and who do not cave once we get them in office, because we have no use for them if they cave once they get into office. And we got to make sure that we gain that power to use it for good. But this is what the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had to say about power, and I'm going to end on this. He said, power without love is reckless. And we're seeing that right now before our eyes in real time, how reckless it is. Even before the war in the Middle East, it is reckless to have power without love. It is the kind of recklessness that will deny the enhanced child tax credit. Hello, I'm old enough to remember that. It is the kind of recklessness that will deny the rail workers the opportunity to strike for better wages and benefits and work conditions, et cetera, et cetera. Fill in the blank. Power without love is reckless and abusive. And we see those abuses playing out in real time in our lives in this country and in the world. He went on to say, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Progressives, that's my message to you. I want us to underline, bold that, underscore that. Yeah, we got the love, but we got to get the power. Because without the power, we can't make the change. Hello, somebody. Dr. King said, power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. Justice makes a demand. Justice don't come in and beg folks. Justice comes in, barreling in, kicking the door in, and it makes a demand. Progressives, are we willing to make the requisite demands that are necessary so that people can thrive in this country and not just survive in this country? Now, Dr. King went on to marry those two things together, that we need both love and power so that they can play out together in this magnificent symphony. I'm putting a Turnerism on Dr. King's quote. And for those of you who understand the workings of the orchestra, if you've ever been to a concert where you have an orchestra playing and every instrument matters, and that beautiful symphony cannot happen unless every single instrument is playing its role. I want us to see ourselves as those instruments. You see, we are instruments for justice in all of its forms. And that we understand as a movement how we must marry love and power and make the requisite demands and be willing to push the consequences when people who have power refuse to use it. So be steadfast and unmovable. Know that everything that is faced might not necessarily be changed, but we can't change it until we're willing to face it. And lastly, be willing to use love and power as vehicles to get to that justice. So that is it for me. I could keep going on and on because I'm feeling something right now this morning. I don't know if you're feeling it this morning, but I'm feeling it this morning. I done preached myself happy this morning. And Russell, I'm ready to answer any questions or to go into a dialogue again. I count it all joy to be among this august body on this day, in December of 2023, and let us ready ourselves to go even stronger into the battle in 2024.
Nina, thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to Henry. I hope there are a couple of questions at least, and then we'll have to move on with the program. But you are inspirational as always, and it's great to see you. Thank you so much for coming today. Henry?
Fantastic, Nina. And put your questions in the chat. Otherwise, we can't deal with them. And I just want to say, Nina, the last time I heard you, you were on a national Zoom with Progressive Dems, and there was a Q&A session. And people, this is true, people stayed on that Q&A for 2.5 hours with Nina. It was unbelievable, and they would have gone on longer. But anyway, so I'm going to start off with taking off from one of the questions, and it's this. We know going into 2024, we have Trump promising to deliver a fascist new government, and we have Biden spinning his wheels, unpopular, and with the Democratic Party unable to find their way to enact the measures that inspire people, working class people, young people, people of color. what do you suggest is the best option as we go into 2024 for progressive people?
Wow.
A simple one to get you started.
Nothing too hard. Well, I love how, Henry, I love how the person who formed the question laid it out on both sides of this. So we're basically fighting neo-fascism and neoliberalism. I happen to believe that neoliberalism breeds neo-fascism. If we look at with a critical eye what happened in 2016 and why Trump, many reasons, but a major reason why Trump was able to gain and also win is because of neoliberal policies had laid the path forward. That didn't happen overnight. Creating an environment where a Trump-like personality could take over this country as president didn't happen overnight. So we cannot forget the history of what got us to this particular moment. And it was neoliberalism. It was not taking care of the needs of working class people. And I mean working class people, because let me just be just embrace. A lot of times when we say working class, people think of just white folks. Let me just say that I'm talking about working class people from all backgrounds, right? Who are sick and tired, in the words of Fannie Lou Hamer, of being sick and tired. And what Trump offered with his faux populism, he said he was going to drain the swamp. Now, as my friend Charlemagne God said, he deluded people because he's the swamp thing, but he said he was going to drain the swamp. And he talked about the trade deals, and he talked about the types of neoliberal policies that got us to where we were. And he had the type of bravado, but it was all a fake. It was all phony. But people, in when there's a vacuum, nature abhors a vacuum, somebody has to fill it. And he filled it at that time because he spoke against the machine. That is what made him so attractive. He went against the status quo. So for us as progressives, we have got to continue to remind people of the dangers of neo-fascism. I often say neo-fascism kills you quick. Neoliberalism kills you slow. In some ways, if we're dying slowly, we might have a chance to be resuscitated, right? If we're going quick, that might not happen. The whole nature of the whole concept of the lesser of two evils is still evil. That is absolutely true. And I think that we are at a moment in our country's history that people may just go for straight up evil. So President Donald J. Trump is a threat. The neoliberals of the Democratic Party don't get it. They think that all they can do, they think they're going to win in 2020 or 2024 in the way that they won in 2020, which is to make Donald J. Trump the poster child. Well, newsflash, Donald J. Trump is not in office right now. And so it's going to be hard to pull that off again. As progressives, we got to put forth the vision that is necessary to provide provision for the people. And we have to do that both from we need an inside-outside game. We got to have activist class on the outside. And then we got to get people elected who, when they get there, they're not going to forget what it is they were sent there to do. And it is the synergy of those two things. I wish I had an easier answer than that, but it's not going to be an easy path. And then we can't fall so in love with the people that we put in office that we don't challenge them when they are not doing what they said they were going to do in terms of using power and love in a way that edifies the people in this country. So inside outside game progressives, that is what we have to do to be able to challenge this. And then, quite frankly, if the Democratic Party continues the course that it is on and just denying that the people who want to see Mr. Trump become president again, they're more animated. If they keep denying that, Trump will be president again, progressive. So there's some things that we can do on the local, regional, and state levels of government. I'm not saying give up on the federal level, but if Democrats don't get a clue, Trump will be president again.
Okay. So, Nina, can you tell us a little about your new organization and how that fits into the political and organizing landscape as we go into 2024?
Wow, thank you for that question. So We Are Somebody is a capacity building organization for working class people, both union and non-union folks. The majority of Americans are not in unions. We want to absolutely change that. They should not be left on the wayside just because they are not in a union and just seeing that need. My vision for this draws upon what has happened in the past in the labor movement with people like Fannie Lou Hamer and of course the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was with sanitation workers, before he was assassinated, to what is happening in present time. It was the coal miners, really the coal miners in Alabama who went on strike for almost 2 years, really trying to fight the machine to get what they deserved. And people who had the power did not give them the time and the attention that they needed. And they ended up having to go back after being on strike for almost 2 years without the type of contract that they deserved. And it was really their grit and their fight that gave me the idea to create We Are Somebody. So coupled with I often move based on the past, the present, and the future. And in the present, it was really their courage that motivated me. And that's when I really found out about a strike fund. I didn't know anything about a strike fund until I started to follow their journey. And they had a strike fund. They had a pretty strong strike fund. But the man or the woman, so to speak, walked them down. In other words, waited them out until they depleted their strike fund. And then they had to go back when they lost their leverage. They lost leverage. And so We Are Somebody is an organization to amplify, to organize, and to fund, and to help workers have their leverage. And then ultimately, my vision for We Are Somebody is to have a multi-million-dollar strike fund. There's never been an organization quite like this in the private side. That is our goal. And so we're having collaboration with groups like PDA, Progressive Democrats for America, One Fair Wage. There are going to be ballot initiatives and legislative movements all over this country in 2024 in 13 states to try to get workers to vote themselves a raise. One Fair Wage is trying to do away with the sub minimum wage. And so if you've never heard of One Fair Wage, I invite you to go look them up. They are absolutely spectacular. Saru, who runs that organization, is a wonderful leader. So we are going to be in fellowship or collaboration with progressive groups. PDA is one of those. One Fair Wage is another. And then on the other side of that, we have a portal on our website. So go to wearesomebody.org and join this fight. Give some money for the mission because we need it. And we're going to help to organize and fund and amplify working class people all over this country. We're about 2 months old now, and I am so excited about this journey, but we can't do it without you. So join us.
All right. Thank you, Nina. Let me bridge a couple of elements here. So one of the interesting aspects of the labor movement over the last few years has been the fact that people who work at colleges, universities, and then young people in Starbucks, Amazon, there's been a real shift. And, sometimes I think the new slogan is postdoctoral fellows of the world unite, but it's really interesting. So how do you see this new surge in the labor movement coming at this time, and how does it relate to the traditional labor movement, and what does it mean for the next few years?
Yeah, what a beautiful question. When I think about what's happening right now and how younger people and even seasoned people, but younger people in particular who are really standing up. Again, as I said, this didn't happen overnight. They are drawn upon the giants that came before them. Asa Philip Randolph comes to mind, one of the greatest trade unionists of the 21st century, that talked about, making a demand and that people deserve what people deserve, that we got to push and fight, led the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters. Mother Jones comes to mind, that trailblazing. I will fight like hell for the living. I pray for the dead and fight like hell for the living. And in her time, she bucked against the system. One of my favorite stories from her is when she asked somebody how they came to be in prison, to be locked up, and they said they had stolen some shoes. And she said to them, had you stolen a railroad, you'd be a United States senator. So we need plain speaking people like the Mother Jones That's us. That's everybody in this room. Pick your giant. Pick the person who is your muse from history or even walking the earth right now. It is it. It is everyday people putting a little extra on their ordinary. And that's really what is happening in this movement. But today's movement didn't just come out of thin air. It is drawing upon the movements that came before it. And that is a beautiful thing. And what we have as a tool that some of our forefathers and foremothers did not have is what we're able to do right now, gather from all over the world through a Zoom to be able to get our messages out through social media and just touch people millions and thousands of miles away. So the beauty of this movement is to be able to use those tools and make it known to people all around the world what is popping. And we must continue to uplift that. Solidarity Summer is now Solidarity Winter, which is going to turn into Solidarity Spring, which is going to turn into Solidarity Summer all over again. This ain't going anywhere. And another reason why this moment is so important, again, I want to go back to 2016. The pop off of the 21st century version of the progressive movement set in play the environment for labor to do what it's doing. Let me shout out Brother Sean Fain, baby. That's my spirit. That's my spirit person right there on the labor side, or Sarah Nelson, so many others. But I'm just throwing it out there because Brother Sean Fain made it be known, and we need to take a page out of his book. They did not endorse. Hello, somebody. They didn't endorse. They said, we ain't endorsing. No, we're not endorsing anybody that's not standing up for labor. Forced President Biden to go see them. I wish more labor leaders had that kind of grit. The UAW just came out and said, we want to cease fire. I wish more labor leaders had that kind of moral, intestinal fortitude to speak a type of truth. And I worry about what the fallout is going to be, because when you are on the side of justice, ultimately, you will be proven right. So this resurgence of the labor movement, because it's not new, workers in this country from time immemorial have been fighting for better wages, better work conditions, and better benefits. This is not new. But this movement is standing on that foundation, and it has a whole bunch of other tools in its toolbox that generations before it did not have. And so I'm excited about this. I don't know about you, Massachusetts. We all need to be excited about what is in store for us in 2024. It's going to be a lot of work, but we're ready to do it.
All right, so let's talk some very practical politics, Nina. And I'm asking from your experience in Ohio and elsewhere, how do you see the working relationship between the local political campaigns, those ordinary city council campaigns, school committee campaigns, and then the bigger campaigns for president, senator? How do you see those linking up? And the reason I ask is, too often, I think even people who are progressives are focused on the big campaigns and think the small campaigns are for somebody else. And then all of a sudden that somebody else is the Tea Party and we're squeezed out.
Yeah, great question. All campaigns are big campaigns, Henry. And for me, I come from the local level of government. I served a mayor before I became a city council woman. I worked in the state Senate before I became a senator. I worked for the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. I've been in I've been blessed to have this public servant career that has really opened my eyes. So your point is well taken. We got to look at all elections as big elections. Two of the hardest jobs I've ever had was to work for a mayor and to become a Cleveland City Councilwoman myself, because you can't hide away. This ain't about, policy in terms of the theoretical uses of policy. You see every day that there's real flesh and blood attached to every policy. You go to the grocery store and people know your name. You're at the doctor's office, people know your name. You at a funeral and people know your name. the local level of government is the most important level of government. Now, mainstream media might not cover who's on council or who's on the regional level of government and even the state level of government. But those folks on those level of government are the most important. They are more important than who's in Congress, because their policy positions have real-time consequences and or impact on people every single day. So Henry, that is a magnificent question. We should not get seduced. I one time said, don't get seduced by the donuts and water. I have to tell y'all that story at another time, but Allie knows what I'm talking about. You can't get seduced by the shiny object that is the Congress and that is the presidency. As progressives, from a practical point, Henry, from just a tactical point of view, we need to pour more of our energy into local and regional levels of government, because it takes a lot less to get a whole lot more. And your question triggered me to say something I forgot to say about We Are Somebody. One of the reasons why I created We Are Somebody, because as a movement, we have been deflated when it comes to electoral politics. Because the neoliberal class that has been at this a lot longer than we have, in the resurgence of the progressive movement, they maneuver in ways that attempt to crush the progressive movement. They will come and try to crush a progressive before they will crush a Republican. Hello, somebody? So one of the reasons why an organization like We Are Somebody is so important, because what I'm saying to my progressive sisters and brothers and family and friends and frenemies is that we don't have to wait for somebody special to be elected to office to be able to make the change. That is why the modern resurgence of the 21st century union movement, labor movement, is so important, because what people like me are saying, or Sarah Nelson is saying, or Sean Fain is saying, or Christian Smalls is saying, we make the changes. We ain't got to wait for somebody with a fancy title or beg them to make the change. So that is another reason why We Are Somebody is so vitally important. But Henry, to go back to your point, don't get dazzled and seduced by the shiny object. The most important level of government is local. And if we can start to make movement in local government coupled with the labor movement, we're unstoppable. So don't get that. And no campaign, no office is too small. And then lastly on that point, we got to stop saying to ourselves off-year elections. There's no such thing as an off-year election. There's an election every single year. Somebody gonna have some type of power every single year, whether it's the judiciary, whether it's on the regional level, whether it's city council, school boards, somebody gonna have that power. So how do we dare then say that the presidency and the Congress is more important than who's your mayor and who's your governor and who's in your state legislatures? It's not more important. Let's go ahead and tune in. This is a great state of Florida. You have the people who put an initiative on the ballot to give returning citizens the power to regain their the vote. And then you got that flim-flam of a governor, DeSantis, who then uses the power to undo the will of the people. That's just one example of many that we can give. So state legislatures matter, governors' mansions matter, mayors' offices matter, city councils matter. And there is no off-year election. They're odd number year elections, they're even year elections, but every single election cycle matters. And we can see quicker and deeper wins if we focus on the local levels of government and also doing what we're doing in the union space. There's an African proverb that says that many hands make for light work. So we have organizations that are purely focused on the federal level. Okay, good for them. But all of us don't have to focus on the federal level of government. We need some hands focusing on the local level. We need some hands focusing on regional and state and so on and so on. We need some hands in the environmental justice space. We need some hands in the civil rights space. We need some hands in the unionist space. You see the picture that I'm painting, sisters and brothers? This is it. Many hands make for light work. No such thing, Henry, as a small election. And you're right. We get seduced by that just because mainstream media. We shouldn't follow mainstream media when it comes to matters that are important to making the changes that we need to have happen.
So Nina, I can't thank you enough for launching us into this day of work. And I want to be the first volunteer, and I'm looking at 100 potential volunteers for a campaign to bring you here to Massachusetts for an in-person meeting where we all expect to be inspired and get to work and after hearing from you again and interacting one-to-one with you. So thank you again, Nina, for getting us started.
Thank you.
Okay.